morning, everybody. Happy Tuesday. Welcome to Coffee with Craig. Today's topic is going to be gun control. Now, this is an interesting thing. So, last week, while most of us were kind of, chillaxing and relaxing, there was a press conference that was held. It was held by the mayor of Chicago, as well as the police chief of Chicago, talking about all of the gun violence that has taken place in the city of Chicago. There've been well over, I think it was like over 4,000 shootings, well over 700 deaths in 1 year alone. All relating to firearms. It's been a particularly bloody year. I mean, it's so bad that they've actually dubbed Chicago. Y'all have heard the term before, Chiraq. And they do that because actually, since over the last few years, there have been more gun violence deaths and more gun violence deaths of Americans in Chicago than actually in Iraq or even in Afghanistan. But the interesting thing about it that came out was actually the police chief in the city of Chicago. His name is Eddie Johnson. Actually came out in the press conference and said that it was gangs, not guns, that were the problem. In fact, he pointed out that 90% of all of those who were involved in the shooting, who were shot, were gang affiliated, and were actually targets of the shooting. I don't know if that means the gang members are, getting better, becoming better shooters. I don't know. But the point that I'm making here is that even he acknowledges. Now, understand this: a police chief is not like a sheriff. A sheriff actually, is elected. A police chief, they actually are hired, and they're hired by a city council or by a mayor in a strong mayor city. So when you have a police chief in a big city who's willing to come out and say the guns are not the problem, it's the gangs that are the problem, that are willing to actually point to what the real issue is, when all of these big city councils and big city mayors want to blame guns, to have him actually stand up and say something like that is one, pretty darn courageous, but two, I think goes to demonstrate just how out of control things are there. Now, he didn't go as far as police chief, what's his name? Detroit police, James Craig. James Craig actually came out. Now, he's a strong advocate for license to carry, giving people the ability to be able to defend themselves. And once again, he's a police chief, not a sheriff. So these are people who are on the ground, who are dealing with crime, who are basically saying, look, the problem is not guns. The problem is gun violence. Now, you'll have folks in the anti-gun community who will basically say, well, 91% of all the murders in Chicago were committed with guns. Well, my thing is 100% of the murders in Chicago were committed by criminals. Yet, and still, in a recent task force by Cook County, which is where Chicago is, they made a lot of mention of gun control, but not any mention at all of criminal control, of dealing with criminal penalties. One of the first things oftentimes that happens when someone is arrested of a gun crime, usually the gun crime, illegal possession, or possession of a stolen weapon, or whatever it is, oftentimes those are the very things that wind up getting thrown out as a part of a plea bargain. So what we're talking about is actually, enforcing gun crime. Actually, just yesterday, Wolf Blitzer was on with Darrell Issa, and he was trying to blame Indiana, the state of Indiana, on all of the gun violence problems in Chicago. And he said, well, it's so much easier to go into Indiana and purchase a firearm and then bring it back and commit crimes in Chicago. And Representative Darrell Issa had the opportunity. He basically said this. First thing he pointed out was that, number one, if these folks are crossing state lines in order to illegally purchase a firearm, guess what? They're doing so illegally. So they're committing a crime. So we're not talking about legal gun owners. We're talking about people who've committed a crime in order to purchase a firearm. But the other thing he pointed out was this: if the ease of getting guns, if the ease of getting your hands on a firearm were the problem, then Gary, Indiana would probably be the murder capital of the world, or at least of the United States. But guess what? It's not. It's not, because it's not the ability to obtain a firearm. It's those who are utilizing a firearm. It's criminals. So all of that to say that I happen to agree with Chief Eddie Johnson. I happen to agree with Chief James Craig, and I believe we need less gun control and more criminal control. And that's particularly pertinent here in California, where we're letting criminals out. We're passing laws that are taking felonies, reducing them down to misdemeanors, right? We're taking them out of prisons and putting them in county jail. And then we're setting them loose on the streets. And then we're surprised when we see an increase in crime. We're also surprised when we see an increase in violent crime. How could this be? Well, it must be guns. No, it ain't guns, it's criminals. In California and all of these states, what we need is more criminal control, less gun control. Anyway, that's my 2 cents on that particular topic. Let's see what you folks have to say. Hey, where are we at here? So we've got criminals get arrested on gun charges. They plead guilty and get a slap on the wrist. Not only do they plead guilty, they usually plead guilty to something else. And the gun crimes usually wind up getting tossed out, or at least they wind up being plea bargained out. A huge percentage, over 90% of cases in the state of California, I've been told, so let me not act like I'm an authority on that, but I've been told that over 90% of them are actually pled out. So they look at that. That is actually a significant part of how justice is done, at least here in the state of California. And guess what they wind up doing? Generally, they wind up throwing out the gun charges. Most of these people have a police record and were let out by our court system. Yep. Right now in the state of California, we just decreased significantly penalties for criminals. We made it easier for criminals to get out of the street, get out on the streets, but we increased penalties for law-abiding gun owners. People who maybe sometimes, in some cases, for no other reason than the laws are confusing, may be in a position where they're going to be a criminal. Politicians don't see that, and politicians don't see that anymore. They see everyone as a criminal. Yes, they see anybody who wants to do something that they disagree with as a criminal. They see anybody who does anything they don't like as a criminal. It's the reason why in California, the Department of Justice spends more time going after law-abiding gun owners, going after business owners, than they do going after actual criminals. Hey, but now you look at it, it seems to work for them, because you got the last attorney general is now a senator. The attorney general before her is currently the governor of California. So evidently in California, that seems to work. Actually not enforcing the crime, not being the top cop, just figuring out what the liberal left doesn't like and making sure that is treated like a crime. Rahm Emanuel is an extension of Obama and his failed gun control policies. Yes, that is true. One of the things that I want to make sure to note was it didn't appear that Rahm Emanuel was supportive of his police chief's statement. Now, I would think that, you hire somebody, you put somebody in a position because they know what they're talking about. Well, in this case, they kind of figured, well, I guess he doesn't know what he's talking about. Or at least he doesn't agree. Because obviously, they want more criminals out on the streets. So actually locking up people who commit crimes, well, that doesn't necessarily fit their agenda. Just allow the good guys to have guns. It will sort itself out. Ease gun restrictions. I completely agree. The main thing is this. I know, in the state of California, what you have to go through in order to get a license to carry in the state of California. It's a lot. I mean, it is, you have to go through training, you have to go through an intensive background check and interview you go through the interview at the local level, background check at the state and federal level. You have to go through a lot of stuff. Then you have to go through training, and you have to be able to demonstrate that you understand the law relating to use of force, when is appropriate and when it is inappropriate. to use force. You have to demonstrate the ability to utilize your firearm effectively. All of these things are things that you have to go through, and you have to do it every 2 years. Now, if that's the case, to me, that's the definition of law-abiding citizens. So far, there are very, very few instances of shootings taking place in the state of California by concealed carry permit holders. Very few instances at all. The thing is, once again, the definition of law-abiding, because you have to go through all of that process in order to eventually be able to get a license to carry. Dave Johnson, it took me 16 months in the Socialist Republic of California to get a CCW. Some people are still trying in certain places in California. Certain sheriffs don't even want to issue them at all. San Francisco, I believe there are a grand total of 2 in the entire county of San Francisco. So it's like, will you be the governor of New York, please? No, I will not be the governor of New York. I happen to love California, and Lord knows I would have a snowball's chance in hell of getting elected here as governor. Criminals get arrested. Oh, no, I already read that one. So I can find one more comment. 11-month process or more to get your CCW. A lot of times, at least I can say this in Sacramento County, the reason why it takes so long is because there are so many people who are applying. We have a sheriff here in Sacramento County who believes that, who believes in the fact that law enforcement can't always be there, and they're not, and we are our own first responder. And so his position is that as long as you have demonstrated that you are a law-abiding citizen, and you can demonstrate that you understand the law, and that you understand when it's appropriate, when it's not, and that you can utilize your firearm effectively, then you should be able to exercise your right to bear arms. In fact, while the state of California would like to see them put a halt in, he put in a speed lane. He actually made a fast lane. He actually made it easier by allowing people to actually apply and go through that process online before going to the interview. He actually made the process a lot better. So that's Sheriff Scott Jones. Once again, a friend of the gun owner, of those who believe in the Second Amendment in Sacramento County and in California. Anyway, folks, I want to thank you. I want to thank you for taking the time to tune in today. We're going to be done for today. We will be back tomorrow with more news, information, and fun conversation. Take care, y'all.
If you like these updates, please share them with your friends and subscribe to our YouTube channel.